Hello, Keshav. Hello, could you speak? Hello, namaskar.
Morning,
Yeah.
ma'am. Good morning.
Yeah. Yeah, I've checked. I think it's everything is. I'm audible, no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're
Okay.
audible and your videos are also quite clear. And ma'am, it's really a pleasure and a privilege to have the opportunity of being able to host you today. And ma'am, that too on such a unique topic. It's not something every day that everyone feels comfortable speaking about. And it is truly our honor and it is our privilege to have this occasion today. Ma'am, since the time is also nearly right, so may I just start with a brief introduction for the class and then I'll hand over the class to you?
You can, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
yeah.
All right, ma'am. So, very briefly and very humbly, I welcome everyone who is participating in our class today. So, uh, with respect to, just a second, ma'am. All right. So again, I'm sorry for the brief interruptions. However they come, we are again a very small and a very humble team. We are there in your seva. We are dedicated to it, and with the blessings of such seniors as Dr. Doma ma'am, who has so graciously agreed to take this class today, and that too, I can only just reiterate to everyone how excited she was about the topic, and that too such a unique topic which she had taken up, which is with respect to laws and efficacy of laws for the differently abled. So these are not things that every day or everyone has the opportunity of speaking about or speaking to. But again, Doma ma'am, since she has always been a champion working in extremely very opposite to the odds sort of situations, so she is the first woman to be appointed as Additional Advocate General in the state of Sikkim in June of 2019. She is the founder member of Sikkim High Court Bar Association, which was formed in January 2021, and is the first elected president, first woman to hold such post in Sikkim and in India since August 2021. So lots of firsts for her. Doma ma'am is also a doctorate. She is a PhD in law from Mumbai University. She has practiced law for over 20 years, and she has been associated with a lot of uh, disadvantaged or disabled communities, and she has been associated with the rights and movement of LGBTQIA plus community in Sikkim, as well as various other communities which she has helped, including the environmental aspects of laws. So again, these are very brief introduction and very humble introduction that I can probably put forth. But I hand over the class to ma'am for effectively taking us through this very unique topic of efficacy of rule of law for the differently able. No, ma'am, I welcome you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for the team of the organizer. And it's always a pleasure to be with amongst the young people of the fraternity and also the people who are interested in. So whatever little experience I have working in this area, so I would like to share with you all. And the topic is it's a humane, and most of the time, as Mr. Sharma has rightly pointed out, very seldom these issues have been raised in the courtrooms, on an office there, but not like a regular. And also in the community, as far as my experience goes down to 20 years. Because initial period of my practice, I have associated with a person with the disabilities, working for their cause and trying to implement the law what it was there earlier, 19 Person with the Disability Act 1995. Now it has been repealed and it has right. What is the background, what was the requirement of doing so? Was it's a categorical because 1995 Act, BWD Act, was very limited, and it had not covered number of a person with the disabilities, number one, and it was not in consonant with the UNCRPD. So what was that? So here, if I look into that, here, United Nations General has adopted a convention on right of person with a disability on 13th day of December 26. So now here, what is the convention laid down? The convention, what is the principle laid down? I'll just get into the background of the act, why it was repealed, because the 2016 act was trying to, since India has so therefore, so trying to make whatever availability there, the provision and the objective with what a convention has been evolved, so that the intent and the purpose was trying to borrow and set it in the new Act of 2016. So what was the basically the convention talks about? Basically, respect for inherent dignity, individual autonomy, including the freedom to make one own choice, the independent of a person, non-discriminatory, full and effective participation and inclusion in society, respect for different and acceptance of person with a disability as a part of a human diversity and humanity, equality of opportunity, accessibility, equality between men and women, respect for evolving capacities of children with the disabilities, and respect for a right of children with a disability to preserve their identity. And therefore, so this extensive intent and the spirit has been borrowed in our 2016 Act. So if you look into the Act also, 2016 Act, you'll find the same provisions incorporated in the sections. For example, basically, Section 2 deals as normal like any other law, talks about the what are the definition of everything, but barrier has been not there in the earlier. So the barrier has been defined properly, means any factor including communication, cultural, economic, environmental, institutional, political, social, attitudinal, structural factors which hampers the full and effective participation of person with the disability in society. So the barrier definition gives the kind of inaccessibility in terms of law, which deals with the everyone is equal before the equal opportunity, as this law has been seen as a human rights of the persons with a disability. Earlier, what has happened, and if my experience goes, we look into the basically the sympathizes. So charity, now the paradigm has been absolutely shifted from charity to human rights. So the rights of the disabled person is a sacrosanct. They cannot be discriminated based on their disability, whatever form it may be. So that was everything covered under the 2016 Act. So now equality, non-discriminations. So now equality, non-discrimination in terms of infrastructures you see. So even today, we will see the barrier. You will not find the most of the, when it talks about the education institution free for children, including the children with a disability as well. But then children with a disability, how many disabled children you will see going into the schools? And even if there are minimal children who are going to school, you'll hardly come across the facility provided for them. It's not a friendly at all. So similarly, like you go to the temple, similarly you a temple in a sense, temple or any other prayer place institution, if you see, there are a lot of stigma as well, because the ground reality and the laws are very beautiful. It's the purpose of the law is very, the issues crops up as a lawyer here when I see the implementation. Now recently there are a number of judgments have been delivered by the Honorable Justice Chandrachud and the other bench, but then see here how many will know about those laws, the direction given in that judgments and the law itself. So the biggest challenge here, practically is the implementation of law in letter and spirit. Now, even person with a disability, how many people will know about this law on the ground? I remember the initial period of my practice when I was traveling to the villages in length and breadth. Then some of the people, person with a disability, shared with me, Madam, we had gone to the office. The office is inaccessible. So we asked that there has to be reservations. We don't get employment. And number three, that the infrastructures are not friendly. And I approached to the officer concerned, the executive. So then the bureaucrats. Then what has happened? They said that you don't have a law as such. So therefore, we had to go to the villages after villages and sensitize about the law, make them aware of the law, and also to the government sectors. So sensitize about the law and all that. So therefore, these are the issues on the ground. So that persons has now the group of this other disability group. This was a group with whom I was working, was a Viklanka Sahayata Samiti. So then that was the A. So even in the court, so how many the judges are very sensitive about the person with a disability, because when it comes to the disability, still in a society, there is a stigma attached to it because some people will say this is a curse, this is the past karma, so they deserve. So this kind of a attitudinal barrier for me when I'm practicing on the ground, the biggest hurdle barrier I see is the attitudinal barrier. Whatever progressive legislation we may have it, but still the society hasn't changed the mindset. That's a big question mark. And therefore, even in that, so the law talks about the various, it's a wonderful law, 2016 it. So for example, equality, non-discriminatory talks about section 3, section 4, women and children with a disability, which basically article 14, non-discriminatory, 15 is a affirmative actions like providing some facility to the person, otherwise also women and children, but in particular women and children, do it talk about inhuman treatment. So this is section 6 talks about. Section 7, protection of abuse, violence, exploitations. Like for example, if I come to protection of abuse, violence and exploitation, I see the person who are put, disability persons who are put into the custody, like a lot of custodial violence meted to them when I come across some of the cases. Like for instance, if I give an example, like old age women who are put into the shelter, old age home, there are a number of cases which have been highlighted. The old age women in the old age homes are being sexually abused, and not only that, sometimes the caretakers have been very abusive by not providing a quality food, by not providing a quality care like clean and hygiene and health facilities like medicines, because as the old age there are a number of so then see, for example, in Juvenile Justice Act, if you look into the juvenile observation home, again in juvenile observation home, you'll see the number of sometime mute girls, or in a like a lifting of a small food items or lifting up certain things. So they have been apprehended, and when they are abandoned children. So they are kept in the observation home. Again, this very vulnerable, again get exploited, and then but through the number of issues has come up, like a guard, caretaker, and so on and so forth. So likewise, there are likewise number of even with the caretaker home, like a shelter home, you will come across the situation. Again, when we take up the cases where there was a recent case when naturally challenged citizen women was been sexually assaulted, and the manner in which the case was done in the court, It was highly insensitive. And the way she has unequivocally proved her case by saying that that is the man who was dragged her and pulled her into the toilet and was sexually assaulted by pressing her breast, and then so on and so forth. But then the person got an acquittal on the ground that the persons, there was nobody heard her screaming, and there were so many people on that. So these are the technicality ground. So this loses a fear in the mind of a person with a disability, and they do not know who to talk to. Institution, the persons who are there in a caretaker, it should be specially a skilled person as per the law, because it law do talks about the providing facilities, accommodations, making a reasonable accommodation. So what is a reasonable accommodation has to be understood in a very, very wider. So, and case to case basis, with the recently Supreme Court judgments of Justice Chandrachud in the case of Vikash Kumar versus UPSC and others 2021 judgments. So this was basically on the case of a writer cramp issues, which went up to the Supreme Court. You can imagine the case went up to the Supreme Court. So in this case, where the court has described what is a reasonable accommodation, and a direction has given a reasonable each and every body requirement is different, because it cannot be seen as a one issue resolves all the issues, because case to case basis it has to be resolved. Like for example, in the Vikash Kumar case, the writer, there was an issue of a problem with the writing. So therefore, so there was sought for an help, providing additional help, but then which was refused when he was writing for UPSC exams. But then the facility which the person has sought for has not been denied, saying that not entitled on the benchmark or disability and disability, all kind of artificial argument has been put forth. But very progressive discussion has held in this case, and the number of progressive judgment like Jija Ghosh and many other judgments have been discussed in this case. So what I feel the wonderful legislation, but the irony is how do we get it implemented? Even we travel to court and then we get a directions, but how do we ensure the implementation of those progressive directions and the progressive legislation? That becomes a very, very difficult propositions. Like for example, I myself have in the initial, so I see laws have not been implemented. At that point of time, Person with a Disability Act 1995, which was not implemented in the letter and spirit, I had filed a case with the Bhutia versus State of Sikkim. This was year sometime in 2007, asking for implement the law in a letter and spirit and provide all the facilities which is enshrined in that documents as a human rights perspective. So then right-based perspective, and I was associated with a number of association like NAB, National Blind Association. Then I was associated with the Spastic Society, where the the children suffering from cerebral palsy. Then I associated with the Vikalanga, with the locomotor disabilities. And then I was associated with the social welfare department. The government has provided the facility for the deaf and dumb. So in that, so that the various groups, a person with the disabilities, and interacted with them, and got to learn a lot from them. So therefore, if it is the whoever participant, the young lawyers are there, my advice is that you read law, understand law, but then just reading and reading judgments or law will not help you much unless you get in touch with persons with a disability, suffering from some sort of disability, and they have no access to the facilities or access to denial of equality and discriminatory. So many things. So then you get to learn a lot from them. So what is actual and how sensitive the language people use us for them, and how it is hurtful for them. So how one should be sensitive. Therefore, that PL when 27, when I took before the court, then the court was surprised to see such in public interest litigations, and the then Chief Justice, now no more, from Manipur, was there. I forgot the justice name. So now what has happened, he said that, madam, you're making an issue out of non-issues. There is where do you see that visible persons in the state? I don't see them at all. So I knew these are the question which is likely to come up in the court. So therefore, when I asked the person, requested all the persons of disability suffering from different area. So therefore, all those who were present in the court, for the first time they had come in the court. So there was so people in the court's premises were shocked to see in their life the 100 disabled person gathering in the court. So they've never seen them. It's a question of a visibility. They were not visible at all. And then the hilly terrain, it's all the more difficult. People with the disability. So suddenly 100 people in the court premises, like a cerebral palsy, there was a deaf and dumb, there was a locomotor disability. Then I asked the court, where are those? Then I said, this is the court room today, full is the person with a disability. So that is how they then admitted and notice got issued. And then, yes, then during the process of pendency, then number of provision got implemented, reservations carry forward, because then at that point 36, where there is a reservation for the person with a disability, 3%. So that if not fulfilled, then that has to be carried forward, which is not done. Then there has to be a facility providing additional facilities, like providing on land, livelihood support, like if there is a person with a disability have no land, provide them a land, and then employment opportunities by building a system or infrastructure which are friendly as per the requirement of the disability. So this was it's an interesting journey. So the journey started from 27, then we got an interesting order. Yes, the community people got sensitized about the act. The bureaucrat got sensitized about the act. The disabled person among themselves became aware of this act. So therefore, I think the barrier I feel is in that process, I found the most difficult is the attitudinal barrier, which has rightly addressed in the act and in convention. So therefore, the biggest barrier today, why the act has not been getting implemented, is the barrier, the level of insensitivity and the stigma attached to the person with a disability. So therefore, somewhere there is a barrier of not act getting implemented. And for me, in the process, what I've learned, the attitude, it has to be done away with, because one must know the language of love, because language of love is universally understood. It has, once the community, be it in the judiciary, be it in the community, be it in any with the highly sensitive, looking at the right-based perspective, give them a right to live with a dignity. I think it's a very easy. I remember the incident of mentally challenged women. Again, within the disabilities also, the most challenging is a person suffering from mental disability, mental illness. So in mental illness, I remember one case, tribal women from West Bengal, who was sexually assaulted, and she doesn't know what is happening to her. And because she was a beggar and she mentally challenged, so everyone was scared and she became very violent, because what has happened is that people are not bothered about her and all that. One of the young lady approached me, madam, what to do? The lady is at any point of time she can deliver a baby, and now we went to the hospital. There is a denial because she is a mad woman. So how do we put a mad women? We do not know, hospital do not know how to handle the mad women. That is the language they're using. So therefore, then I said, bring her, then I'll meet her. And when I saw her, you know how they are. She was very senior women, and not able to, and violent, and her cloth was torn and everything. And she doesn't know, and nobody knows what's her name and who was her guardian. She was loitering wherever she gets. She eats from the road, whatever she gets, all that. And she was at any, this is a sexual and reproductive rights with the 2016 Act talks about it. So therefore, I say, in terms of now, that is a basic right to be mother, because that was a complete 9 month was absolutely. So at any point of time, I had to go, and when I met the doctors and the nurses, they said, madam, please stand on the line, and then said that get the card done. Then I said, then they said, no, card cannot be done because now it is at 2 o'clock. Tomorrow, next day, you have to come 10 o'clock. Then I said, when an emergency situation, would you like to see the timing and all that? And they said, okay, okay. Then I fought with them. And then immediately I took her to the doctor and said that they were so unhappy with me, and they were really looking with annoyed at me. And then they provided me a long list of medicine, because they really don't want to touch her because she was so dirty. And they said, I need a gloves of a 10 piece of gloves, and then we need this medicine, then cloth, because nurses are not going to bathe her, nobody's going to bathe her. Then what has happened was, then ultimately I said that I fought with them. I said, provide this list, I'll go to the court, and then will you not provide a person who are abandoned, who are mentally challenged, on this, who needs medical care of her reproductive rights? So then they got scared. They took the snatched the list with me. They said, we'll provide that. Then what has happened was, then finally, then I'm told in the middle of the night, I got a call from the hospital author. Some nurse called me that the lady ran away from the hospital. Then I had to, how come you are responsible? Because I have given a custody care, the care under your care. So then I need, immediately I'm going to lodge a case against you. Then they said that we need a police now. So you need to help us to provide police protections and some lady police to look out for her and to bring her. So then I approached the police authority. Then they, uh, two, three women's police constable were given to. Then we look out for her, then managed to get her. But when I went near to her, she was not violent at all. So why I was talking about the attitudinal barrier, the hatred, the insensitive and unconnected, because she could see this is the woman who cares for me. And she could understand, despite being a mentally ill, suffering from mental illness, this is the women, she is doing something better for me. So therefore, when I close to her, she felt very safe. She felt very safe and all that. So then I could just touch her and then take her there. And then she had a beautiful baby. Then baby was because given under for the adoptions, because she was absolutely not in a position, and she was put into the rehabilitation home. So that is one case which talks about the law in every aspect. Therefore, that case made me understand that the love, not I'm saying love, I don't mean the sympathy. I'm saying love from the perspective, right-based perspective. The person should get the right to live with the dignity, non-discriminatory, all kind of accommodation to her. So the facility without barrier, medical, health, be it anything what she requires. So therefore, so that kind of a change of mindset in the society would to go a long way to subserve the implementation of the law, because end of the day, no matter how much we harp on, how much we do discuss about, how much we do talk about, because to get the implementation of the law in letter and spirit is, I found, the most challenging. It's a very, very difficult. So therefore, how do you go to the community and sensitize about this? The new 2016 Act do talk about the sensitization, creating, generating of awareness. But I saw some of the organization itself who deal with a person with a disability and all that. Sometimes very harsh and aggressive. Sometimes they themselves, in my initial period, I'm not saying now. Now things have much changed. Things have much improved compared to what it used to be. So they themselves used to seek for money from the charity point of view, and on disability day, then they say need a fund for this and that. I was a little upset with that. I was very young then, and they used to debate a lot. But yes, but things have changed. Things have changed. Things have moved. So now the I think this law, what I see is a progressive legislation are not taught in the law colleges. The law colleges, what laws are taught is the conventional law. We are basically taught to be how to be a very good lawyer, but we are not taught how to be a very humane lawyer. How do you, as a legal profession, when it was a noble profession, how do we? It's become a profession. I would say it's a very rude word if you use a danda. So how do we make the maximum money? How good we are in argument in the court of law. And basically in law colleges, we are taught the writing skill of all arguing skill. And then basically what are the CRPC, IPC, a conventional law, like then CPC, and then all regular. But then I do not find now, I do not know where the colleges now they teach this laws, because in our time, so I learned the law working on the ground with the people affected, be it Juvenile Justice Act, be it the Women with the Domestic Violence Act, be it with the Person with the Disabilities Act, being associated with the person who are affected. And that taught me a lot. That made me to read the laws. And after reading law, when I went to the ground level and how difficult it was and what are the mindset, I found it's a very, so these are the subject need to be taught in the law with a high level of sensitivity, because now it's a luckily state legal service authority, NALSA and all that started going and spreading the awareness on the PWD Act and all that. But then again, I see the hurdle here, the person who does the training, how much the level of experience working in this area, and the level of sensitivity, and how the courses and the training has been imparted, because it does an impact. It does have a very, very significance, because the communications to the people on the other side, unless you don't have a field experience, it's become very, very theoretical. And theoretical, it doesn't I mean reach to the heart. And unless any of the progressive legislations, where we don't see from the heart, uh, to ensure that their rights are been not violated, and all the rule of law, fundamental rights for any other persons who are so-called non-disabled persons, uh, whatever the facilities have been provided in the society, that's facility has to be provided for the person with a disability also according to the needs. So therefore it's a reasonable accommodation. The word has been beautifully. So how do we interpret all the issues of disability in a case-to-case basis with a high level of sensitivity, but not from the a view of charity or something, but it has to be from the right-based perspective. So this is what I can share with you all. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So this is what the law, what the incident I shared with it. I need not have to get into the law of each and every provision that everyone can read about. But that one mentally challenged illness uh, women, that was the full package of the whole act, what it talks about today, 2016 Act. It was then, it was sometime in 27, 8, I feel. So that is how it, then still the challenges are there. But of course, things have moved up quite a lot. Now the person with a disability in all sectors have been quite I mean, they are aware of this act. What I see here now on the Disability Day, they have been, I mean, very assertive with their rights, been taking forth their cause. So therefore, I'm a bit contented, not fully, that things have been realized, things have been improved on the ground, but still it's a very, very dismal, because when you go, still I don't see now, even when I travel to the plain side, in the railways platform, in the anywhere I see person with a disability, where is a question of rehabilitation? Who's Nobody's coming forward and giving them a rehabilitation. So who will monitor again that rehabilitation? The committee which is described by the act, how the committee is again sensitive, how far they are going. Sometimes committees are executive, they have too many things in their hand. As an additional AG, I could see now the district collectors and some of the SDM, and then bureaucrats are made as a part of the process. But again, sometimes there are too many things on their plates. So how do we push forward to make them things implement on the ground? So I think these are the challenges still I see. Yes.
Ma'am, actually, very elaborately and very well explained, I would say. And ma'am, that specifically that incident which you shared, it has given a lot of light to understanding, at least trying to understand. Ma'am, what, as per your understanding, is the role of empathy in dealing with um, cases uh, of
Person with it.
disabilities?
Yes. Yes, yes. It's not a sympathy, empathy, because they do not like to be sympathized. Work closely with them. Even for any person's, I feel, even like any person say, person whose rights are violated, हमको न्याय चाहिए. What do you want? हाँ, हमको जो भी हो न्याय चाहिए, हमको न्याय चाहिए. So any person on this. So that is the same feeling with a person with a disability as well. Right. So he doesn't want to look to the sympathizing. So they say हमको न्याय चाहिए. So I deserve equal respect, dignity in the society. So my rights are there, you have violated. I remember the lines sometime person saying that for me you are a disabled. Definitely I can't speak the sign language. And the person, they are like saying, for me we are not disabled persons, because we communicate in sign language, but you have not learned the sign. That is the day I realize I'm actually a disabled person. So because I do not know their language. So therefore, how do you look into attitudinal also? How the person with a disability will see us and how we look at them. So that has to be changed, you know. Yeah. And who decides? Mostly the decision makers are uh, the person, so-called non-disabled person, who decides, who gives the decision for the person. It's always been not a person with disability. So therefore, in terms of accessibility with the employment, in terms of accessibility, in terms of being in this, so now even in a judiciary, you'll see that There's not a single judge who was a disabled person. Like South Africa, there's some judges, Justice Yakub, right? And then there was a facility provided for him, right? So he used to deliver open judgments on that. Good to hear. Now, lawyer also, we have a very few lawyers, right? Few lawyers. But then see, our courts are friendly with the disabled. Do our judges are been trained to know the sign language? Is it a course, a court of, is it for us a curriculum to know the language? We uses the third person, whether third person communicate correctly or not, we do not know, because I am being told that even sign language, it's varies from teacher to teacher. A person who have never got a training of a sign language, who are the family, supposing, say for example, I've seen in many of the family houses where there's a one person suffering from disability of mutant, so can't speak. So in that, I saw everybody speaking in the sign language, but those people, again, when we go to the institutional sign language, they don't teach, because it was not like a person who goes to school, ABCD has learned, YZ, all that. Person who have never been to the school doesn't know ABCD. So similarly with the sign language, people do innovative, one who has never been to any institution to learn a sign language, but be it family or be it the person with a disability, then they create their own languages. And person who were in the institutions, when you bring them together, there is a communication gap. So in that process, should we all not, there should not be a curriculum for the judicial academy? Like for example, you see in the in Bhopal there is a judicial academy. So do you see the curriculum in their academic? The sign language has to be learned and basics has to be learned, something. Or I think this kind of thing, of course, one or two judges becoming a sensitive doesn't make the whole thing, it's a, again, then it's a, so similarly with the all institution, who decide for them? It is a person, so-called not disabled person. And there, because this is basically simply that there's a barrier, even for the rape cases now, you see, for most of that. So somebody has been brought in, the communication problems. So that I see a lot of victims have never got a mentally challenged victims. They hardly gets any good service provider who knows all that. These are the ground reality which I've seen. When we talk and read the law, it's when we read a judgment, it's wonderful, you feel. But then when you really go to the ground level, then how many people are aware of it? How do you get it implemented? That becomes a challenge. And where is the barrier? So for me, it's a simple, it's an attitudinal barrier. Not knowing the law or the rights of the person with the disability also is a big barrier. So this is what therefore I see in empathy, because sympathy, nobody wants a sympathy.
I understand, ma'am. It's very great, ma'am, that you have such on the ground and such in-person experience of this. Ma'am, another small thing which comes to my mind more so is that what are the impacts on the family and the family members, the family structures of people who are suffering with disabilities?
Yes, again, that's a very good question. It's a very good when we have an interactive, because what has happened in family also, there is a lot of stigma, because I have seen there are family who doesn't, if the in one of the family, if there's a person with they again, they don't want to make them mingle with the society, because their right to be live with the community with the Act 2016 talks about. But again, that has been denied sometime by the family itself. I've seen there is in our language, it's called a sape, that one who moves like a snake. It's a loco, it's a basic, there's cerebral palsy, but it's a physical, absolutely physically. So they feel that in our family, if people come to know that we have such person in our house, so then in the potential scope for marriage for the daughters get affected, because people not approach. That's number one. And that also sees that there's a stigma. And I know some of the people uh, We hear that they have one of the member in the family with such disability, but it's like a gossip. We do not know, we have never seen. And they very secretly, they keep a person to take care of that. So here again, the comes, so that what, it's a beautiful question you have asked. Again, there is a denial for the person with such a disability to get rehabilitated. Number two, to be with the community. That I do talk about the be with the family, but sometimes family themselves denial. I think that's what I'm saying. Again, it's an attitudinal barrier, because that is stigma, what society will tell us, समाज क्या बोलेंगे ना, हमारे घर में ऐसा है करके हमको बदनाम करेंगे now. So they hide, sometimes they chained, they keep locked, so they confine in such situations. So how do we address such area again? So therefore, unless the stigma, the religion, sometimes faith also, there's a this such people cannot be brought into, so unless it's a very difficult, I see that that's are happening also. I'm sure this is everywhere, this issues.
Ma'am, actually,
Hello.
yes, ma'am, very true, ma'am. As you said, that it is everywhere. Ma'am, I want to share this very small insight on this. That I was going through this research by ICMR and
Yes.
another one by Gates Foundation. And with respect to India itself, ma'am, and both places, primarily it was with respect to mental health, and they mentioned that in India, about 15% of people are suffering from some kind of disorders wherein they require some kind of uh, intervention, wherein
Correct.
some thoughts need to be given. And I was just looking at those numbers when compared to
Yes.
the population of India. So, ma'am, I understand that lots of it is actually amongst our society, amongst our people, everyday people who are living with us. And so, ma'am, what should be our approach of uh, dealing with people in general? Uh, Keeping this thing in mind that there may be way too many cases of people suffering without uh, us even knowing, or without they themselves even knowing.
Yes, like for example, this is a case of Ravindra Kumar Dhariwal versus Union of India and others. This was a case of 2018, right, where the disciplinary proceeding was initiated against the IGP, who was suffering from, what do you call that? It's a sort of some mental issues, right? Because he has a obsessive, that he was suffering from some sort of disorder, which he was also
Obsessive compulsive disorder, ma'am.
compulsive disorder. Yes. So this case about one of such issues where, so therefore, where he want to kill the person, or he wants to being killed, so people will do not know what to do now. So then whole that case discuss about the how three proceeding initiated against him, and then saying that this is, and then how technical argument was raised in the high court level, saying that these are the plea not taken in the first court, right, only in the second court that the plea was taken, therefore not been. So therefore, I'm saying again, at how the case, it's not like a regular case, the case which you are dealing with of some persons who need of a different level of argument. So therefore, the training in the law colleges are equally important. The law colleges lecturers, the professors, need to be trained. I think this is the wide way forward to look into if you really want to. The mental issues now, therefore, now star like a Deepipa Padukone coming forward. Yes, I have some sort of mental illness. So good. These are the star people look upon, and they are coming. There's no shame. There's no shame. You can go and need some interventions. I have like a mental illness, so the many of the people are not able to identify. Some of my friends itself are in the middle of, because of too much work pressure also, people do suffer that. And then she gets up middle of the night and then read newspaper suddenly, continuously reading a newspaper, becoming very restless. So we notice that something is not proper, something is not. Then when she was taken to the psychiatrist, then realizes she was suffering from some sort of a mental illness. So their depressions. So then she was cured then subsequently, but refused to, but then with the friends and all that made her understand. And so there are a number of issues people do not know. So therefore, this again, as you said rightly, community that we do not know, everyone is suffering from some sort of disorder. Therefore, intervention like visiting a psychiatric is a normal. Again, going to psychiatric, ये तो पगला है, ये पगली है, कुछ ना कुछ मैंने इसको साइकेट्रिस्ट ऑफिस से निकलते देखा, शादी करने होता है मत करो, इसका कुछ फैमिली में इश्यू, और देयर सम प्रॉब्लम विद हिम और हर, राइट, with anybody. So therefore, going to visiting the psychiatric itself is a stigma, isn't it? So even today, how much we talk about it, we go to the rural village, that's still a big stigma. Even in the city, we may be superficially, that's a cool kind of a behavior, it's no problem, yeah, understand. But how many percentage of people will take it progressive? The majority chunk will still have to give a second thought about it. So therefore, people are not coming forward. So therefore, the campaigns are going rightly. Is the stars says that I was in the getting the what was a superstar or some, but at that same time I was suffering from that disease. So I need an intervention. I took the help of the psychiatrics and counseling and so on and so forth. And women's, especially victim of domestic violence, if you see, 99% are suffering from some sort of mental disorder, the mental depressions. That's what I found it. Again, then that's she's crazy. She throws the glass at me. She does it. But nobody tried to understand why was that behavior about it. So medical intervention and some sort of, or a psychiatric, a society intervention. So these are not, so therefore, I'm saying, therefore, unless the level of training is that level, I see is still a challenge.
Definitely, ma'am, it's really great that you have such deep insight into the subject, and we are all being able to get at least some idea of it. And also, what I'm being able to understand is that this time is very limited, and as a matter of fact, I think it deserves more time than this particular topic. That as much as we've been able to allocate to it. So, ma'am, I just want to ask everyone that if there is any question, because I have way too many questions. So if anyone has any question that they want to ask, ma'am, it's a very good time right now. Otherwise, I'll continue. Like, please ask if you want. Yes, Jagdish ji.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the encouragement. Madam, as being one of the PWDs, I heard your lecture. Yes. And I just want to give my input. See, yes. Madam, unfortunately, what has happened is, in disability rights, the movement is led by certain 5-star NGOs and activists. And unfortunately, because of this pressure from these 5-star activists and NGOs, the legal fraternity and media is also rolling into their dance tunes. A very simple case, like when we talk about accessibility under the Act, either 95 or 2016.
Yes.
The focus is, if you see, every time at the time of elections, media, NGOs will, work out election booths are not accessible.
Correct.
But has these NGOs ever focused on whether the buildings where these disabled people are working or staying are for a disabled person in the society complex is not provided to him and he's forced to park his vehicle very far off, never taken up, because this will not be highlighted in the media. Second thing, when you talk about accessibility, the focus of accessibility is always on the wheelchair without realizing the fact that there are more number of disabled people using calipers and crutches. They never bothered that why in public premises the flooring material used is very slippery. In all public places, granite and Spartak tiles are used, slippery and death trap in the monsoon. But nobody bothers. So in this particular group, there are a lot of lawyers. I want to say that when you talk about accessibility, toward reasonability. Of course, we should not expect every for our whims and fancy. But whenever it's of disability, not for a one particular class or one, not just one particular type of disability. Please give your inputs about it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. That's what I said also in my talk. I said that I've met in some of the organization. That's what I said. Some are there to just to generate a fund or so. I was really, this was with the spastic in the initial period of mine. So then, yes. And there are many, I thought it's just doing for the sake of getting some award or some, what do you call that, Ratna, some Bharat Ratna or something like that. But then when I closely work with them, there's a very limited. And when I was a lawyer, I don't, somehow I was sensitive. I feel that I was almost isolated. They're saying you're raising everywhere the issue, as you're saying. The issues is everywhere. So where are you highlighting? This is the biggest challenge. And you rightly said there are 5-star. So they limited issues. What is their funding project, and under that, based on the funding project, so that they will work up within the funding project itself. Because when it's addressing the issues in a holistic manner, what you're talking about, covering the disabled person with a different areas and requirement in a different way. That's what I said, case to case basis. That's what the Chandrachud has also said in this recent judgment, Justice Chandra. So therefore, here the approach is never been a holistic. Like, for example, if I'm working for a spastic, I will address only spastic. I'm working for the locomotor, then I'm only just dressing of the locomotor. There is no unity among the groups also, because it has to be discussed inclusiveness, all that. Then you rightly said recently there was an environment issue. I was working for it. So then what has happened in that case, the smart city is building of in our state. I was representing the smart city where in the state of Sikkim, obviously. So we were making a junction improvement where, and also we were talking about the felling of tree where was a causing hurdle to the parking space, causing hurdle to the many. Then the whole focus was only on the environment. The person with the disability was not. And then lawyer from the other side, there were many battery of lawyer were not thinking. And then they were happily, the court sitting was also saying that, why you're cutting? Are we can turn around, we can do this. And the lawyers are happily saying that I can move zigzag. Why they are cutting off this is much? Why doing nonsense? Why this? See now how important the global warming, that kind of very hi-fi arguments. And then I said that when we talk about the development, I'm talking about the inclusive development. But in the process of development, when you look into it, we have neglected the person with a disability, but they cannot move zigzagly. And the visually challenged locomotor, then the many other, they cannot move as the learned counsel. I named that lawyer also, like God, they cannot do so. Therefore, we are looking into the inclusive development. When we talk about development, then we only think about the facility or whatever you're talking about it, only for the so-called the normal, so what you call language. It's a regular kind of infrastructure we are talking about. Therefore, tiles, you saying slippery, and then everything. So therefore, I was saying over and over again, look from the right-based perspective, but with the empathy, but at the same time with a great level of sensitivity and care. Only then every holistically things will be taken care. Otherwise, as an isolated organization base also working on, like for example, mentally challenged, again, women confined in the mental asylum, or women who have been in custody, they are raped. How many people are talking about? Very, very dismal about. You think these women who have been meted with the custodial rape, custodial tortures, these are very hardcore area. Nobody wants to get here. We talk about the facility, providing facility, this and that, to make them visible. They have to be visible, that's it. But the torture, the rape meted by these women, and who are again been pregnant, and their sexual and reproductive right, These are the area very few talks about it. Very, very few talks about. The challenges are there. Yes, I agree with you.
Doma ma'am, it's been really very insightful this entire session. And Jagdish ji, thank you so much for that very deep insights of yours
This was
also.
very
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Doma ma'am, on a very sincere note, I extend the deepest of thanks from the entire team and all the participants for you to be taking time out today and discussing with us this very important topic, which very few people have very limited insights upon. And we're deeply very grateful to you, ma'am, for taking your time out today. And ma'am, at the same time, I also understand that it is very unjust to just have this one conversation on it. And ma'am, we hope that we'll have the occasion and opportunity of being able to host you again, also in the future, to have discussions on this topic with your blessings, ma'am.
always a pleasure. Always a pleasure for the society. I always felt that I must, from my legal, whatever knowledge I have, must share with the young people in particular, with the young lawyers like you. And I really appreciate the way you are arranged and all that, at least getting connected with the people and all that, whatever experience we have, I think it's always a privilege to share and ignite the young mind to work for the cause besides the professions and making money. One has to make money, but at the same time, we have to be equally responsible towards the society by doing through the legal uh, some sort of service to the area where required with a great sensitivity, with a great credibility, not for the name's sake or for the sake of doing it. Therefore, I did not get into much theory because the book, everything's there. But the reality, what is ground, how the law has to be looked into, that is a rule of law, how the law is there, and the, what is the ground label. So therefore, that was, I feel, important to share. Thank you very much.
It has been a real pleasure.